Today on the CTV News at 5.
We tried.
The last patients leave the Carmen Gay Continuing Care Center. Plus,
we're all riding your school bus to make sure that people are driving safe by you guys.
Why some police officers are taking the bus to school. And could there be arsenic in your cupboard?
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. The community of Carmen Gay is mourning the loss of the Little Bow Continuing Care Center. The last of its 18 dementia and Alzheimer's patients were moved this morning, and the some 40 staff punched out for the final time this afternoon. The town's mayor says the closure strikes a major blow to the community and sets off new concerns for its now former patients. Daryl Rummel reports.
After one last cup of coffee with the staff, 98-year-old Agnes Hegland is on her way to her new home.
She understands that she's leaving. She thinks everybody here has gone south for the winter. And she was the unlucky one that got lucky, or unlucky one that got to stay back. But it's a terrible day.
On a day marked with hugs and filled with tears.
We tried.
The Little Bow Continuing Care Center closed its doors for the final time.
18 of our residents have now been evicted. 2 of them have passed away. Another one's not doing well.
Staff say familiarity is key to a patient's well-being. Agnes Hegland suffers from Alzheimer's. Her family fears, like other residents who passed away after being moved, her health may be put at risk too.
It feels like an end, but I guess it's a beginning. We're going to have to start over again with her at a new place. And we're just going to have faith that she's going to do all right there.
Hegland is being moved to a facility in High River.
1, 2, atta girl.
A facility that houses far more than the 18 who lived at the Little Bow.
When you're in a brutal world and a government that looks at dollars and cents to pay for all these silly bonuses and buyouts of executives, the money has to come from somewhere, and it's going to come from the front lines and taking care of these people with the kind of care they actually need.
Kim Nichols says as the town's mayor, she's yet to receive any communication from Alberta Health Services that the center is being closed. She found out as a staff member in July when plans were unveiled. Despite a long battle, including rallies and tours from politicians, that fight is now over. 40 staff laid off, 18 patients moved, 2 have passed away.
So you mourn the loss of not only the move, but also their passing and the future of the community.
The remaining medical staff left this morning with the center's final 2 patients. The rest of the hospital staff was off at 3 o'clock, replaced with security guards from Alberta Health Services, scared of any vandalism. Daryl Rummel, CTV News, Carmen Gay.
The community of Carmen Gay will be holding a candlelight vigil tomorrow night to mark the closure. It begins 7 o'clock at the Continuing Care Center. 2 people managed to escape with only minor injuries after their helicopter hit a power line and crashed north of Pincher Creek today. The helicopter went down over the lunch hour in a pasture near Cowley. The downed power line then ignited a grass fire. EMS responded and managed to get the fire under control quickly. The pilot and passenger were fishing in the area when they took off and hooked the power line. They were shaken but not seriously hurt. Police and fire investigators are looking into the cause of a fire in South Lethbridge that forced the evacuation of an entire apartment building. All 150 residents of the Cumberland Towers apartment managed to safely get out. The call came in around 10:30 Tuesday night when someone noticed smoke in a hallway. Crews discovered a fire smoldering in a small metal container in a unit on the 2nd floor. It was quickly contained. Fire prevention officers have completed their examination, and they say the investigation is now in the hands of Lethbridge Regional Police. It remains dry in southern Alberta, which means a fire ban remains in place. No outdoor fires are allowed, including burning barrels and fireworks. The ban includes south of Calgary, east to the Saskatchewan border, and south to the U.S. border. It's in effect as of today and will remain in place until the area gets some moisture. Meanwhile, an open fire ban in the Southeast BC Fire Centre has been extended until October the 15th. And we really can't complain, though, with all the great weather we've got, Doria. More sunshine's on the way.
Yeah, I know. And you mentioned the fire bans, and they're going to stay in place until we get some moisture. That isn't expected to happen anytime soon. Wait till you see the 5-day forecast. The warm temperatures are expected to continue along with the sunshine. I'll have more details coming up in a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Dory. Student safety is the driving force behind Palliser School Division's new bus campaign. All week, police officers will be riding the bus along certain routes to catch traffic violators and also spread the message about keeping our students safe. Alicia Fieldberg reports.
It was pretty scary.
6-year-old Megan Moreau had a close call this spring when she was nearly hit by a Cataliner that sped by as she was getting on the school bus.
Well, the lights were on and the stop sign was out, and it was, I don't know what it was doing, but it kept going.
After several reports of this type of dangerous behavior, Palliser School Division has partnered with local law enforcers to try to put the brakes on traffic violators.
We're all riding your school bus to make sure that people are driving safe by you guys.
Officers work as teams along routes identified as high risk between Calgary and Lethbridge. Some ride buses with students and watch for traffic violators. They report them to officers in cars nearby to nab them.
What we want the people to be aware of is when they see a school bus, this is when your intention should be at the highest, because that school bus is picking up precious cargo.
Be proactive rather than reactive to a situation where, something serious happens.
Palliser Schools is using a $17,000 traffic safety grant to run the program. It's the first of its kind in the province, but others may get on board. Representatives from the Provincial Education Department and Alberta School Board Association are already interested.
With the strong team there, I think it also sends a very strong message to our public and to our kids as well that this is important to everyone, and ultimately student safety is where we must start.
Alicia Fieldberg, CTV News, Picture Butte.
Failing to use caution when a bus has its amber lights on is a $340 fine. Passing a school bus when its flashing lights are on is a $402 fine and 6 demerit points. A 15-year-old boy has pleaded guilty in a disturbing case of incest. Back in April, a 15-year-old Lethbridge boy was charged with incest for allegedly assaulting his sister on a number of occasions. An investigation determined that the girl was sexually assaulted between 2010 and 2012, beginning when she was just 10 years old. The boy, who can't be identified, today entered a plea of guilty to sexual assault, and now a pre-sentence report has been ordered. He will be sentenced on November the 14th. And RCMP are investigating allegations that a historic Aboriginal site was vandalized. Its alleged ancient Aboriginal rock etchings at Glenwood, Erratic near Pincher Creek have been vandalized with a drill, acid, and a power washer. Police will be working with agencies that specialize in preserving Alberta history, like Parks Canada and Alberta Sustainable Resources Development. If you have any information, please contact police. It's a significant date for thousands of Canadians who attended Indian residential schools. Midnight is the deadline for residential school survivors who are applying for the independent assessment review process. That's a process set up to resolve claims of physical or sexual abuse or other wrongful acts while attending a residential school. Terry Vogt reports.
Sharon Curley-Ryder was among those hoping for an extension of the claims deadline. When that didn't happen, she was forced to make a tough decision. Did she have the courage to come forward and face her fears?
I didn't want to go through all that, to dig up the old wounds and just kind of move forward and heal over that. But it affects our children, our grandchildren, and I'd like to set a path for them in the future. So kind of deal with things and perhaps make it easier for others to confront their issues.
It's very difficult for some people to go back to their childhood abuse. Some of them have not dealt with it. And so now maybe some of them are in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So it's difficult for them.
In many parts of Canada, attending Indian residential schools was mandatory, a policy that separated over 150,000 Aboriginal children from their families and communities. Band officials say a lot of those residential school survivors are still afraid to come forward, but they're urging those individuals to file a claim before the deadline, even if they have no intention of following through with it.
They can change their mind after they fill out their application. At least they have the option of withdrawing. their application. But if you did not apply, there's no options. You know, you pretty well have lost that opportunity to go for an IAP claim.
The registration process is being streamlined in order to make things easier for those who are filing claims. Staff will only be taking basic information at this time, doing follow-up interviews at a later date.
I've sort of had to face my fears.
Sharon Curly-Ryder says the deadline has forced her to come forward in hopes of healing herself and building a better future for her children and grandchildren. Terry Vogt, CTV News, on the Blood Reserve.
The claims office will be open until 7 o'clock tonight to take last-minute applications. It's located in the Community Health Center in Standoff. A private family service was held today for former Alberta Premier Peter Lougheed. His body returned to Calgary last night after lying in state for 2 days at the Alberta Legislature. The hearse carrying Lougheed received a full VIP police escort from Edmonton to Calgary. Traffic was halted as Lougheed's hearse traveled along Deerfoot, Glenmore Trail and Elbow Drive before arriving at the funeral home. Late yesterday afternoon, flanked by Mounties and draped with both a Canadian and an Alberta flag, Lougheed's casket was escorted out of the Alberta Legislature Rotunda. Before making the trek back to Calgary, the motorcade stopped briefly at the Rutherford House, where Lougheed lived while attending the U of A. It also paused in front of the Knox Church. That's where he married his wife Jean in 1952. A public memorial for the late Premier will be held Friday 1 p.m. at Calgary's Jubilee Auditorium. We will carry that service live here on CTV. And the portrait of the Canadian family is continuing to change. The latest census data shows that while married parents and their kids still are the norm, more Canadians are foregoing traditional marriage. Common law relationships are on the rise, up nearly 14% in the past 4 years. The number of married couples declined by nearly 133,000 over the past decade. And for the first time, Stats Canada says there are more people living alone in Canada than there are couples with children. One-person households now make up 27% of all Canadian homes. Time now for a look at today's markets.